Hello, my name is Shaman Manifesto, and welcome to my Conquest of Azeroth, Son of Arugal class showcase. The sons and daughters of Arugal are mortals afflicted with the curse of the Worgen, and bound to the Archmage Arugal. Those that break free of his control usually return to their normal lives in the Alliance. But with these newfound powers and abilities, how could you resist not going feral every once in a while? Or perhaps you lean more towards the masterful arts of blood magic. As stated just a moment ago, the Son of Arrogal class features two distinct routes, blood magic, or the more feral aspect of the Worgen curse. First, we'll discuss the blood magic aspect of the class, as it is what becomes first available to you during the leveling experience. Firstly, you have your signature spell, Blood Moon Blast, an ability that casts a curse bolt of magic at your target, dealing shadow damage and generating rage. This ability can also be used while moving. Up next, we've got Shadow Hemorrhage, Curse of Blood, and Life Drinker. Shadow Hemorrhage is the first spender ability that you will acquire during your Arugal playthrough, allowing you to channel your rage into the form of a curse which rips your target's internal organs to shreds, causing them to take bleeding damage every 3 seconds for 30 seconds. This ability has no cooldown, and personally, I like to use it for mass pulling mobs at low levels, because it does more than enough damage to kill them while you just run around and kite them. Curse of Blood is not so much a dot, but more of a delayed form of damage. Once cast, it'll curse your target, and then 5 seconds later they will take a nice hit of shadow damage, and you'll gain 20 rage. Eventually, you'll also acquire another rage spender for the caster side of things, Life Drinker, an ability where for the steep price of 40 rage, you can give your opponent the suck, and drain them of their health over an 8-second channel. During this time, you'll also be slowing your target by 20%. This ability has no cooldown, so if need be, you could potentially get 2 back-to-back casts. 3 if a Curse of Blood finishes its duration during one of your casts. Up next, I'll discuss the Arrogal Buffs, only one of which can be applied to other players, being Blood Thorns. Granting impressive Thorns damage when applied to a tank, potentially yourself if you are in the mood to tank. Otherwise, the only time it'll be doing damage is when a healer/DPS rips aggro off the mob, which shouldn't be happening much. The other two, Shadowfang's Shield and Blood Claws, can only be applied to yourself. You can think of Shadowfang's Shield as a Warlock armor, giving you some protection against shadow damage while also healing you for a % of your health periodically. Blood Claws will mostly only see use while you are shapeshifted into a Worgen, but when you are, it will be incredibly useful, allowing your auto attacks a chance to apply a bleed effect to your target that reduces healing, as well as granting your single target physical abilities a decent health drain effect whenever used against a bleeding target. Now, let's take a trip into the wild side of things with Arugal, as I explain the Worgen-centric abilities. First up, let's discuss the 2 forms that you are offered when going wild. The Curse of the Worgen is your standard DPS form. Once you've amassed a good amount of rage via blood magic, you can shift into Worgen form and make use of all that rage that you've built up inside. While technically you can cast Curse of the Worgen with no rage, I highly recommend waiting till you've got at least some rage, as the form slowly drains your rage at an increasing rate, so if you go in empty, you definitely won't be able to hold it for long. The second form available is Eternal Curse, which, unlike the previous form, does not drain your rage, and allows you to stay in the form indefinitely. This form is more appropriately used for tanking, as it grants increased threat gen, max health, and grants you 5 rage to spend whenever you are hit with an attack. Now that we've got the forms out of the way, let's talk about the abilities you'll have access to now that you're a Worgen. At this point, I'd like to say that in the Worgen form, you'll lose access to most, if not all, of your blood magic related abilities. Anyways, let's continue. Once you've transformed, you'll have access to the following: Ravenous Bite, your main DPS button, as well as your best survival tool, as it will help trigger the heal from Blood Claw, as well as having its own built-in healing at 2% of your max health per cast. Then, you've got Lupine Shred, a very potent and useful ability that applies a bleed to every enemy within melee range, perfectly setting up all your targets for potential Blood Claw attacks. Plus, AoE dots with simple applications are always cool. Bloodfang Bite, an attack that has a bit more bite to it, dealing a good chunk of shadow damage and healing you for a solid amount, but also limited by its 30-second cooldown. This is likely something you'll want to press ASAP as a DPS, but maybe hold on to emergencies as a tank. You've also got Lunge, a pretty damn good mobility tool with a short cooldown of 4 seconds. though it does come with a little bit of cost to your rage, so you've got to be a little bit careful when using it. Blood Howl, an AoE taunt with an incredibly short cooldown that also generates a good amount of rage. Personally, I use this quite often in the world just to generate rage and extend my Worgen form. Maybe you could find some ways to get away with it while using it as a DPS without getting yourself destroyed in the process. Finally, you've got Arugal's Blessing, a very nice short cooldown defensive tool that reduces all incoming damage by 10% for 8 seconds, but more importantly, increases your healing taken by 35%, both affecting the healing of your abilities as well as any incoming healing from your healer buddies. Lastly, we've got our 2 honorable mentions for today. Transfusion, a spell which heals your target for 8% max health at the cost of reducing your own max health by 8%, which can also be used on yourself in very dire situations. Admittedly not the strongest spell, it does come with a nice bit of flavor, and the fact that the heal is percentage based, it could be used nicely for tanks. And then the most important, powerful, oppressive skill that the sons and daughters of Arugal have to offer, Running Wild. A 100% move speed mount, granted at level 22 for absolutely free. It has 0 cast time, as long as you're out of combat, and you can slap this button and be mounted and running at Mach 6. Anyways, for those that have made it to the end of this video, I'd just like to say I appreciate you very much for tuning in, and I hope that this video might have given you any insight you were looking for regarding the Son of Arugal class. Hopefully, I'll see you around another time. Shaman Manifesto,